Okay, everyone, before we get started today, I have a special announcement to make. I'm embarking on a new exciting adventure. It's a YouTube channel. Okay, now stay with me here. That's right. I decided to bring the power of project management to an entirely different platform in contexts that you may not expect. So, for my first video, I'm taking a deep dive into the world of car upgrades, okay, but not in the way you might think. I'll be using project management principles to upgrade my old SUV by installing a brand new head unit and a backup camera. So I'll break down the process into manageable parts and slowly introducing the concepts of project management, well, to the masses. So it's going to showcase the power and versatility of project management via video. So if you want to see project management in action in real life, or if you're just a car enthusiast, head on over to pmforthemasses.com/YouTube to watch the video. The link will also be in the show notes for this episode. So I urge you to subscribe to the channel, because as you can tell, I'm a little anxious about how this is going to land, and let me know your thoughts. I named the channel Milestone as a nod to both project management and the automotive world, which are two of my great passions. So before we start now, I want to express my gratitude to Atoto, which is the company behind the incredible head unit I'm installing in my car. They've been fantastic in supporting this project, and the product line is just amazing and it's such value. So I can't recommend them enough. So if you're looking to upgrade your car with, let's say you have a car that doesn't have Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, or you feel like you have to have your phone on your dash mounted, like if you don't have a backup camera, check out their product range at mayatoto.com. It's a wonderful company. They have excellent support and customer service, and they are a supporter of not only the PM from the Masses podcast, but also the Milestone YouTube channel. So again, please visit pmforthemasses.com/YouTube, subscribe to Milestone, and let me know your thoughts. Really, please let me know. This is a new endeavor for me, and your feedback is invaluable. So thank you for your continued support and for joining me on this new journey. Now, let's get started. Today, we're going to talk about artificial intelligence in project management with Tom Ummells.
Project managers, have you ever felt like you should get that promotion or a better job? Start a business, write that book. Have you ever felt you were made for more but didn't know where to start?
Welcome to the PM for the Masses podcast with your host, Cesar.
Learn from the experts, think outside the box, have a voice, network, and be extraordinary.
PM for the Masses podcast.
Well, hello everybody and welcome once again. I'm Cesar, your host, and this show is your regular reminder that your career matters more than your job and that your life is a project, and you, my friend, are the manager. Whether you work for a company or just for yourself, your job stability is really just your ability to land your next gig. So, join me in practicing intentional, planned, and value-adding relevance starting right now. Friends, today we're going to talk about artificial intelligence a little bit, and I've been this has been a big topic in my mind, and it is so transformative that I have hesitated in how to introduce it here. I've been thinking about this for months now, how impactful it can be for project management and for our trade. And I was trying to find an angle, and I'm going to bring more guests and more topics around this subject of artificial intelligence. But I was contacted by Tom Ummells, who is my guest here today, and he showed me a tool that he is working on, which is fascinating, and it's like right up my alley here for anything when it comes to artificial intelligence and project management. So let's get started. Let me bring Tom into the call here. Hello, Tom. How are you?
Hey, hi, Cesar. I'm well. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. So first of all, tell us where you're calling us from, because that alone is kind of fascinating.
From Curacao. It's a Caribbean island just off the coast of Venezuela. Mm-hmm. I'm originally from the Netherlands, but that's where I moved 10 years ago now. Yep.
I was going to say that's not a Caribbean accent you have there.
No, not at all. No.
Okay, so we're going to talk about AI and the tool that you're working on. But can you briefly explain your journey and what led you to create this project management tool that we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, so I'm a civil engineer. I studied civil engineering in Delft in the Netherlands and worked with consultancy firms for about 5 years. And during that work, I had to make a lot of proposals. And around that time, you only had MS Project and Primavera, and then Excel to make a Gantt chart. And I really like Gantt charts in a proposal because it's so visual and it contains so much information about how you want to do a project. And I was always struggling to quickly make a Gantt chart just to include in a proposal. After 5 years, I switched to IT. I'm a geek and learned myself to program. And that was during the internet bubble, so those were exciting times. And I grew as a programmer. And at some point, I was good enough that I could build whatever thing I was missing when I was the project manager at these consultancy firms. And so at some point, I decided to just start out and build the Gantt chart creation tool that I thought lots of people would need. And that became Tom's Planner. I actually made the first version and my friends started using it and they referred to it as Tom's Planner, being Mind Planner, and the name stuck. So it's still Tom's Planner, and that's been launched in 2009 and grown ever since. And it's being used in over 100 countries by everyone from freelancers to Fortune 500 companies. And so that's how I got to the point where I'm right now. And then on December 2022, last year, at the beginning of December, OpenAI launched this ChatGTP thingy. And I was blown away by the magic, more or less, that seems to be behind it. And it actually took me like 2 or 3 months before I made the click that I could try and use it to have it build Gantt charts, project plans based on a short project description. So I started to explore that idea, and it seemed to be really well at this task. And so I built it into Tom's Planner. And now if you just enter a short description of a project, you push a button and then you get like a full Gantt chart that you can actually immediately start to use. Yeah.
Right. And I'm going to talk about my experience with the tool a little bit. This was really interesting to me as well because I have experience in construction as well. Before I had the career that I have now, I worked for over a decade in the industry, and we had a tool that we built in-house as well for project management. It wasn't I wouldn't say it would be a competitor to this, but it did involve Gantt charts and having to create them. And usually we would get, we would get the Gantt chart from the customer, from the client, because we worked for like these large construction projects in which the Gantt chart was actually part of the contractual obligation that the contractor had with the construction owner, and those were really not. You could tell 9 times out of 10 that they just did that because it was in the contract. They had no intention of following what was in it.
Yep.
Activities that depended on each other, but they were obviously not linked that way. No critical path, nothing like that. So it was we had to take those and kind of make sense of it. So when I saw your tool, that kind of brought back those those memories of how to to break those things down. And so I'm looking at it right now, and I recommend everybody go to tomsplanner.com and create an account there and try this out. It's incredible. So what I'm looking at right now is it's a Gantt chart, but there's a button there that's called AI Assist. So if you're creating a new project, and Tom, I'll let you correct me here and add to my experience. So I just wanted to share the experience that I had. So you click AI Assist, and then you're presented with a prompt in which you can describe your project in a sentence, just a sentence if you want, or a few sentences. So I'm just trying out. I just put in, I want to sell my car, and I want to sell a used car, and I want to make the most money I can make from it. I want to sell it on an online auction, just some details like that. And then you press enter, and then it basically creates a list of activities and puts in a Gantt chart, and then it's ready for you to keep them or add to them, or and then add your timelines and things like that. And it's just the level of detail is just incredible. So I can see this as being a great starting point, like you said, for any project, and it's doing this via the OpenAI connection, correct?
Yep. So the magic that you're seeing, it's not built by me. We are just connecting to it. So yeah, it's done by ChatGPT-4 from OpenAI, and ChatGPT or OpenAI offers to developers like a door where you can knock on, and then you can ask questions to ChatGPT-4, and it gives you back the results. So the app is talking on the back end with OpenAI and gathering the results based on queries that we feed it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Now I've been playing around with this, so I've maybe my understanding of this is maybe slightly above average. But let's take a step back and explain what is ChatGPT, what is OpenAI, and how is it able to do what it does?
Okay. I studied AI for a year in Amsterdam at the university, so I've some knowledge about how these kind of things work. So OpenAI, where to start? OpenAI is basically an organization that started out with the ideal that we will be developing artificial intelligence in the next 2 to 3 decades. It will have a huge impact on society, and they wanted to make sure that everybody has access to it. Now that they are so successful, they are drifting a little bit away from these ideals, unfortunately, but that's where it started out. And that's also why they give so much access to everybody to this technology. And what they did was they made the discovery that if you feed a certain kind of algorithm with a lot of training data, being texts that can be found on the internet, if you do that on a sufficient scale, this algorithm starts to mimic human intelligence. So it isn't human intelligence, but it mimics it, which is more than enough for lots of tasks, and gives us these surprising results. And in last year December, they released the first version that was like on a level that is really usable for everybody in a professional context. The algorithm basically only tries to predict what the answer will be to a question by having seen lots of text. So it's all like, okay, I have this set of words, then these set of words come next. I have the next set of words, and then the next set of words comes next. And by looking at this constantly and processing this, it starts to be able to predict what kind of answer would come after your question. And we didn't expect this to result in this type of display of human intelligence, but it does, and that's the discovery that's driving now all these developments. Yeah.
Right. Yes, and they like to say that, especially with ChatGPT, it's a language model, right? So it's really good at sounding human, right? Because it basically read the entire internet. So so potentially billions of people writing. So it basically learned to mimic that, and in the process, it also
that's the word. Yep.
Right.
It mimics it. Yep.
So it's not really intelligence. It's just a very eloquent robot that learned how to sound like us by basically listening to all of our conversations.
Yep, that's it. Yeah, it's really good at that, and it doesn't repeat what we have said. It like a baby. A baby hears his or her parents talking about all kinds of stuff, and then it starts to form its own sentences at some point. So this works the same. The AI has read a lot of stuff and then starts to generate its own texts based on what you feed it. So people always tend to think that it can only answer questions that it can find information about on the internet, but that's not the case. It has learned to recognize patterns and then tries to replicate them.
Right, right. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Like I would not trust it to give me a right answer to anything.
No.
It is great at creating language. So I can give him like the text of the book I wrote, for example, and say, hey, what are the main points here? And the tool reads the book and is able to, using language, to rewrite parts of it. Hey, translate this to Spanish or write it like a pirate, things like that.
Yeah.
But
you're right. Yeah.
I would not ask it, hey, what is the definition of a work breakdown structure? Because I don't know. I don't know that I can trust what it says, so.
Yeah, it's someone told it it's a professional bullshitter. So that was a funny
there you go.
way to approach it. But you have to really check what comes out of it. That being said, I mean, you've played around with the AI assistant, Tom Spanner, right? The results are spot on.
Yes.
Most of the times. So, yeah, that's really surprising to me. But you will always have to check it. Yeah, it's like I heard somebody else saying it's like you have an intern, and this intern is doing a pretty good job, but you have to check the outcome before you use it. Yeah.
Right. Now, speaking of checking the outcome, let me tell you all about a recent outcome that I've been enjoying. I've been thinking a lot about a problem that I've struggled with, and I know many of you have as well, because you tell me about this all the time. I'm constantly juggling so many things, right? Creating new content. I have my full-time job. I'm a dad. Now we just got a puppy. Planning this podcast, for example, and sometimes it gets overwhelming. And we're all trying to be more efficient and productive, right? And this is something that everybody faces. So I found something that's been a real game changer for me. It's called Magic Mind. And I mentioned this before, but I want to talk about it again. So Magic Mind is this tiny little bottle that I take every morning that really helps me stop procrastinating and puts a little pep in my step, if you will. It has, I think it kind of has replaced my third cup of coffee, if that makes sense. And it's just so much better than coffee. I'm not saying you shouldn't drink coffee or you should replace your coffee, but I like to drink coffee because of the taste, not to help me, make it through my day, if that makes sense. So it's this really cool blend of matcha, nootropics, and adaptogens that's easy to incorporate into my routine because, like I said, it's just one little bottle. So I take it in the morning before I start work, and I feel like it boosts my energy levels for the entire day. It's really easy to use. I like the taste of it. Some people think it tastes kind of funny, but I really like it. And it's become a bit of an essential part of my morning routine. Now, I wouldn't recommend anything to you without seeing results myself. And I have seen results here. So I say after a couple, maybe 3-4 days of taking Magic Mind, I noticed that I was able to focus better. I felt less stressed and more creative. It's easy to get into that flow state or in the zone. I'm sure you've been there, when you get into the zone, like we're going down deep into one vertical, if you will, like, trying to write that email, that, write a report, and it's sometimes hard to focus. I find like it's easier for me to do that now. So, like I said, it's not just, it's not a replacement for coffee. It's not caffeine, but these ingredients like matcha and the others that I mentioned really boosts working memory. And I think that's what makes the difference. So what I love the most about Magic Mind is that it helps me be more efficient without causing a crash later. Like I said, with a coffee, for example, it's smoother, long-lasting energy that's so much better than that quick buzz you get from coffee or tea. Like I said, it made a significant difference in my life, and I recommend it to any of my friends or family and to you as well. So if you're tired of feeling like you're not at 100%, give it a shot. I promise you, it's a game changer. The great thing is that there's an offer for all of you listeners of this podcast. So if you want to give Magic Mind a try, head on over to magicmind.co/PMP. Magicmind.co, not .com. Okay, magicmind.co/PMP. And use my code PMP to get up to 50% off your first subscription for the next 10 days. And after that, you can still use the code PMP to get a 20% discount on all purchases. So again, magicmind.co/PMP, coupon code PMP. So what are you waiting for? Go boost your productivity with Magic Mind today. You won't regret it. Now, Tom, the main use of AI in Tom's Planner is basically taking the definition of your project and then breaking it down into its components. And in a way, yes, there's some experience required depending on the kind of project, especially if it's a new type of project that hasn't been talked about before. So there's no data for it online. But for most projects, OpenAI has the ability to take what you wrote and say, okay, what composes this thing? So, like for example, I wrote here, in Tom's Planner, I need to build a fence, right? Mm-hmm. And this is, I'll just tell the audience here what it came up with, right? So it gave me 5 main groupings. One is called planning. The other one is material acquisition. The other one is site preparation, and then post setting, and then fence panel installation. I said it was a wooden fence, by the way. And then finishing touches. And then each one of these items is broken down into about 8 activities. So for example, material acquisition is broken down into researching and selection, obtaining cost estimates, placing order for materials, scheduling delivery, renting or purchasing materials that you need, necessary tools, purchasing safety equipment, inspecting delivered materials, and returning incorrect or damaged materials. It's incredible, right?
It's crazy, right? Yeah. And it's crazier even that half a year ago, this would not have been possible. It's magic. Yeah.
Okay. So this is, and then, because it is I guess you could go to ChatGPT and ask it, hey, how would you break down this project?
Yep.
And you would spew out a bunch of text for you that you potentially could copy paste into some sort of spreadsheet and try to make sense of it. But the way you organize this, you take the output from OpenAI and just put it in in a project management format that makes sense to those who understand Gantt charts. Yep. So really, I keep saying mind blowing, but I don't know any better way to describe this. All right, so let's talk about some of the challenges here. So what were the main challenges you faced when building this, especially when you're trying to break it down into these, there are different ways, I guess, that projects can be broken down. Some people like to break them down into milestones or deliverables, and here's basically activities because it is a Gantt chart. Yeah. So were there any challenges there? Like the way it's breaking it down, it's not really an activity, but it's a deliverable, for example, right?
Yeah.
Anything like
right.
that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I see people entering the description of a project like, I want to plan, I have a crew of 9 people to run this shop and I want to schedule them their shifts. That's not a project. So if you feed that as a project description to ChatGPT, it comes up with a project on how to build a schedule that the person is needing, but not the schedule itself. So there are some questions that I ask ChatGPT when I feed it the project description so that I can more or less get an indication or categorization of the type of description that I'm looking at. And then I go from there and I just ask it basically to break it up in main phases, and then subsequently I ask it to break it down, each main phase, break that down in activities. And what I do is I feed the results that it gave me back each time to make sure that there are no overlaps with activities in previous groups. And the challenge, for me, there were 2 personal challenges. I really was surprised about how well it does this, and I was excited about it, and I wanted to be the first to show it to the world. So there was a lot of time pressure during this project, but I managed to be the first, so that was good. And the other thing was that if you start to work with these kinds of things, it's the magnitude of the technological improvement that we have achieved in the past year and the impact that this will be having on the world is huge. And if you truly start to dig in it and work with it, you discover it. And I found that I had to deal a little bit with that. So during the building this, I had to get used to the types of questions that you can ask them. And sometimes I changed something and I was almost hesitant to try it out because I would know that it would do really well and I would be this, really impressed by it. And also with that comes it's not fair, but you're looking ahead, you don't know what's going to happen with it. So there's a little bit of unease with it. So those were the things that happened during building this. If you use ChatGPT, you can ask it questions in just natural language, and you have to find out what works best. So there's a lot of fine tuning you call it the prompt. So in the search engine, you put in the search query. If you do it with AI, they call it the prompt. And there's now this field they call prompt engineering. So there's some prompt engineering involved in getting the best type of input for the model, for the AI, so that it gives you back the best quality answers.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yes. And I think in your case here, of course, the front end development of this, it's a lot of work, and you've been working on this for a long time. And at the same time, you may agree with me that the secret sauce of this tool is how you're turning the project description supplied by the user into a useful prompt for OpenAI, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So, for example, if I go to ChatGPT right now and say I want to eat a cake tomorrow, it's going to reply. Actually, I can try right now. ChatGPT, okay? I want to eat a cake tomorrow. This is what it tells me. That sounds delightful. Here are a few steps you can take. Right?
There you go. It already starts to divide it up.
So decide on a recipe, right? But it's very simple. It's very okay, decide on a recipe, gather your ingredients, whatever. Now, if I ask your tool the same thing, it breaks it down into 6 different parts, planning, recipe selection, grocery shopping, baking, decoration, and enjoyment. Yeah. And then even enjoyment is broken down into further activities like remove cake from refrigerator, light candles if appropriate, take photographs of cake, cut cake into slices, serve cake to guests, accept compliments on cake.
That's crazy, right? Yeah.
And it goes on. So this is, I think, this is the power of your tool is just, it takes the prompt and looks at it. Okay, this is a project. If this is a project, how would we break this down into groupings and activities? So very cool.
And did you discover that you can also click on one of the activities, and then in the context menu there's an option, AI Assist, and then you can, for instance, ask it to break that specific activity down in a new group. So that allows you to dive deeper into the project plan. Or you could ask it, for instance, for this group, suggest more activities. So you can use that if you have made your own Gantt chart and you're wondering if you've missed something. Mm-hmm. You can just ask it, suggest more activities for this group, and then it will try to give you some suggestions based on your whole project plan of things that might still be missing.
Amazing.
Yeah,
I did try that. And it just, for example, here, the make a grocery list, I did that as I can make a grocery list and then include party supplies, add beverages and snacks, pantry essentials, cake ingredients, and all that. So that wasn't there before. Question about these activities and how they relate to each other. One thing that I could not immediately see, maybe it's not there yet, is a relationship between activities, like dependencies. Is that built in yet?
No, not yet. No. So what there's like it tries to guesstimate the start and end dates on a group level. I also built that it estimates the start and end dates for all the activities. But I haven't been able to make that perform really well, especially in comparison to how well it lists these activities and comes up with this division in groups and the lists itself. So I've turned it off because it distracts from the quality that it's delivering in the breaking up part.
Right.
I've worked on the planning part itself for a couple of weeks, but I haven't had too much success yet to make that really good and work of sufficient quality that I feel confident to release it to the users. So I'm not sure if that's, as I said, you have to see ChatGPT or OpenAI as an intern that's surprisingly well in some tasks and sometimes bad in other tasks. And I think we're finding that it's not really good in planning the dependencies as well of the activities itself. I do ask it to order the activities in chronological order, and it seems to be doing that pretty well. So it has the ability to think it chronologically, but I think that's where it stops for now. But I'm sure that new models will be released in the next few months, and chances are really high that then it suddenly starts to work a lot better.
Yeah, definitely. I see here the activities seem to be in a chronological order. Planning before the recipe selection, before the grocery shopping, before the baking, before the decoration. And then inside each one of those categories, also, baking, the first thing is preheat the oven, right? So it's interesting. I would think that especially GPT-4 would probably do a good job at, if you ask, hey, of all these activities, which ones must be finished before this one takes place, right?
Right.
And then I guess you could automate some sort of a critical path type of situation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The thing is with these kind of models, if you ask them a question, it takes a while for them to come up with the answer. There's quite a delay in it. So if you're, for instance, if you want to ask like for every task how it depends on other tasks, that would take a lot of time. So, but I haven't tried it yet, but that could be something that we could add later on. Right. Yeah.
Fascinating. Okay. So what type of projects or tasks do you think Tom's Planner handles best, and where do you think he might struggle?
Tom's Planner in general?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What kind of projects, it
excels in its ease of use. And I explain it as being the Google Docs version of MS Project. And it's a little bit like a round trip to describe it, but it makes a lot of sense. So it's like MS Project, but with much less abilities. A lot easier to use, and there's a much lower threshold of entrance, and so it's used by like freelancers, but Fortune 500 companies. It's used by NHL, H&M, big companies, but also like bands that are releasing their new album. But it's short. A learning curve is what makes it work so well, and especially in circumstances where you have to work together with others on project plans that are not necessarily that well skilled in project planning tools, then it really shines. Because I always say, like, play around with it for like 2 or 3 minutes, and then you'll be scheduling your first chart. So that's a little bit where it. So we tell people, if planning a project in Excel is chaos and fancy project management tools are overkill, then try Tom's Planner, and that's exactly where it's positioned. Yep.
That's great. Yeah, that's typically the place that's underserved by these tools. You have a lot of personal task management systems, like they're everywhere, but and then the Primaveras and MS projects, which are expensive and hard to learn. And
and it's funny to see my direct competitors, like they come up, then are at the same level as Tom's Planner, and then they pass me, and they get really complicated with long tutorial videos and so like that, and then they just disappear in the horizon again. But we really want to do this, just to offer a really easy to use tool to create a Gantt chart, and we do that more or less by trying to approach it as a drawing program for Gantt charts, instead of having this really data-oriented approach where you first have to enter all the dates and everything before you start seeing like the visual of a Gantt chart. And as it turns out, it works really well.
Okay. For each of the activities, I felt maybe am I doing this right? Like, for me to see it on the Gantt chart, I need to specifically select the start and end day. I can't just like click and drag right onto the chart itself.
Yeah, well, what you can do is you can right click on it and then choose add period or add a symbol, and then it adds it, and then you can.
Yeah, okay, I see.
And I build it like you were expecting it, like you just drag a little rectangle and then it adds the color bar. Mm-hmm. But that mixes up with, if you're trying to scroll around, drag around, it didn't feel well. It was too confusing, so we left it at this.
Right, and you can add your dependencies after the bars are there. I see. You can do that too. The system just won't do it automatically for you, but you can do that. Okay. Very cool. One question I had as well, like when you're starting, right, and you're describing your project, is there a limit? It's just it looks like a small text box, or is there a limit for number of characters that you can use there?
No, you can put in as much as you like, and you can also add a comment to each text where you expand on with a description or links or stuff like that. And you can also add more columns, text columns. So in most Gantt chart software, there's just one column with names of the activities, and then maybe the start and the end date. In Tom's Planner, you can just add as many columns as you like. We have a column with traffic lights, which is red, green, and orange for status, stuff like that. And we also have a column type where you can add icons to it, which can mean whatever you like. Yeah. So it's a little bit the drawing program approach. It's really flexible. You can just build it like you want it to look like.
Okay. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, that's great. What about at the beginning when you click the AI assist, and you have your text box to describe the project? Is there a limit there? And I'm asking this because sometimes, you will have you bid on a project, right? And you have your proposal, and you win the job, and now you have basically your proposal is a description of what you're delivering. Can you just copy that, paste into that box, or is that too much?
Yeah. I haven't tried it yet.
Okay.
Please try. But I know that it will start missing on details if it's like a really long description. But if you notice, there's like an advanced option link under the text bar. And that's where you can tell it to split it up in 15 subgroups, with like 15 activities in each group. So you can have it create a really large chart for you if you want to. The text that you can enter is unlimited between quote marks. I mean, the system will give it a try, but I'm pretty sure you're better off with a to-the-point description of what you would like to accomplish with the project.
Right. Yeah, I know there's the whole talk about tokens, right? Like how many characters you feed into the into the API, and I know there's a limit there because I tried to do some crazy things and you wouldn't let me do it. But okay,
I'm sure you can break it if you want to.
Okay. So do you have, since you've implemented this, have you heard from any customers? Do you have maybe a case study or like a story you can share with us about how this was helpful to somebody in a particular way?
No, I haven't gotten that type of feedback. Lots of people are surprised by it, and like it's there's a little magic to it, and that's where people respond really well. There are some concerns, privacy concerns, which is really valid. But other than that, no, I haven't. But I should try and reach out to people that, like the last 1,000 users that have signed up and gave it a try, to just get some use cases from that. Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's talk about privacy for a minute, because this is a concern for a lot of people. So what happens when you type in your project description there and that data goes away? What happens to that information that you put there?
Yeah. So we feed it to we feed it to OpenAI, their systems, and they take your project description, and based on that, they start to give me the names of groups and of activities and such. So the only thing that we feed them is like this little project description. And OpenAI promises that in the way that we use their system, it won't include the data entered into their systems other than for monitoring misuse of their AI. So that's what OpenAI is promising us. There's no way of checking that, but I'm inclined to believe them. So for privacy concerns, it seems that there's not a real concern there. But it's valid to ask questions about it and to keep a close eye on it. Because if you use the web interface, like the ChatGPT website, and you start to enter questions and it responds, and you respond on those responses again, they will be using that conversation as training material for their AI to improve upon. But in the way that we use it, that doesn't happen.
Right. Yeah. That was my understanding as well. If it's via the API, then
if you do it via
then it's they don't use it. But then I was thinking, we had this conversation at work. Somebody wrote a post about this, about that it's mostly safe to use if you're using the API to put information in there. And I was going to comment that still made me a bit nervous, but then I realized, isn't that what we do with Google Docs, for example, right? Like right, yeah. And we have
and Gmail
and Gmail
Google search.
So privacy is a concern, but it's a concern everywhere. It's not particular to this tool. That's my take, at least. So, Yeah,
the thing with AI is that it's new to us, and it's a powerful technology, and developments are growing really fast, and that creates a lot of unease, which is valid and understandable. And so that makes it that everybody is a little bit more on edge than they are usually. And also we are right now finding out how things work, what works, what doesn't work, and we should keep a close eye on it. Yeah.
Okay. I also noticed that you have a import-export function there. Is this, let's say somebody works for a big corporation, they use Primavera or they use my MS project. Are they able to export this and re-import it into a different tool?
Yep, that's exactly what I wanted to enable. So my use case was build or write a proposal, have this Gantt chart, and if you win the proposal, then being able to continue with it in MS Project. So you can export it to MS Project and then continue from there. If like the project grows in complexity, then you can just move on from Tom's Planet to MS Project. And we also have like different formats like CSV, Excel, There's a JSON format which programmers can use to build their applications on top of. So there are a couple of ways you'll be able to export it and then import it in other software.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, if you export it as CSV or even JSON, you can actually take that file and copy paste it into ChatGPT and ask more questions.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
You could do
I've also experimented with explaining to ChatGPT what the JSON formatting is of a Tom's Planner project, Gantt chart, and then feed it the project description and having it return the full JSON of a Gantt chart. But that was clearly a way too complex task for it. But who knows? In a couple of years, we'll be able to do that as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so to wrap up, so first of all, I want to recommend everybody go there. We're going to talk about links and things like that at the end, but it's hard, and this is a philosophical question, and I think a lot of folks are having these thoughts right now. And in fact, this is nothing new. I'm rereading a book it's one of my favorite books, rereading it for the 5th time, I think. It's called The Information. It's about the history of information theory, and by James Gleick. I'll put a link to that on the show notes as well.
I'm writing it down right now.
Yeah, I love it because it is a book about information theory, which is kind of a geeky technology type of conversation, but it's written by a journalist who is deeply a deep thinker. So there's a lot of philosophy around that, and I'm in the chapter now when he talks about the telegraph. When the telegraph came around, we didn't really understand electricity yet, but we kind of saw that we could, make needles move across a wire, across the room, and say, oh, maybe we can stretch this wire further. Can we do that? And oh wow, we can stretch this wire for miles, and we can have an impact. And before then, the only way to communicate was to have somebody run between towns or on horseback with a note, right? Yeah. And all of a sudden, they can know what the weather is like, hundreds of miles away, which triggered this whole revolution of meteorology, for example. Nobody thought about that before. That hey, if it's windy in Toronto today, tomorrow in Detroit it's going to rain. Nobody ever made those connections because they never had the information. Right. And that did away with a lot of jobs. A lot of jobs went away, like messengers and things like that. And then and that lasted for maybe 20 years. And then the telephone came, and then the telegraph died, and then those jobs went away. And I feel like we're in a moment, we're in the cusp of something like that, in which some roles are going to go away, others are going to change deeply. Yeah. So as we move towards more of these AI power tools, right? And you as a project manager is listening right now, when you see what this tool can do, you may think, oh, wow, this is my job. Yep. So what do you think will be the role of the project manager in the future?
Oh, the future question. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good question, but it's dangerous to try to predict the future. But it will change for sure. But that's it. It will change. Some types of roles will disappear. Others will appear. As for project managers, it's a lot of, there are the Gantt charts, there are like the budgets, the risk assessments, stuff like that, but you are tying everything together and managing it and having this overview. And I think that's a really powerful human activity, so to say, which will not be replaced by AI anytime soon. AI will help us and assist us and make us more productive with doing this work. And it will probably take out lots of tasks that are menial or, like repetitive. So I would expect that it makes quality of work better. I was a bit surprised. I was like, I thought it was notable. They're doing these studies right now, right? What this AI is doing for the workforce. And it seems that it makes a big difference for lower educated and people with lower skill sets, and it elevates them. And it doesn't make such a big difference for people with higher education and high skill sets. So it makes a part a lot more productive, and that feels to me like good news. I mean, I like that's happening. But especially for project managers, there's a lot of like managing the team, getting everybody on board, keeping stakeholders informed. Specifically for project managers, I wouldn't be too worried about losing your job.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I would be curious if I was a project manager right now, I would keep my eyes open for all the different small things you can do with it, which make your productivity better, you're more efficient, more effective. I think there's a lot to gain probably in the next 2 to 3 years in that regard. And what is also good to know is that this AI field has always improved with big steps, and then it plateaued again. So if you look back in the last couple of decades, there's a discovery and developments go really fast, and then it plateaus for like 10 years or something, and then there's a new discovery, like a breakthrough discovery, and then it happens again. Obviously, we are in the middle of a breakthrough discovery, but chances are that this plateau is really close, and this is what we end up with for the next 10 years. There's also a chance that we're just halfway this breakthrough and it will go a lot further, but it's not necessarily true that the pace of developments that we're seeing right now is going to continue in the next 2 to 3 years. There's a good chance that it will just plateau, and that the speed in which things are changing right now will stabilize and be more manageable. Yeah.
Great. That's very encouraging. Yeah, and I'd like to encourage everybody listening right now to go and try out Tom's Planner, try out ChatGPT, and instead of fear, I want you to feel inspired. The question to ask, in my view, is not, hey, is this going to take away my job? But the question to ask yourself is like, what could I do if there were 10 of me, that I can't do right now because I'm spending my time, for example, breaking down a project into 100 activities, right? And then, okay, how can I use these tools to scale what I do and up my impact and ride the wave? It's interesting times, and I think we're going to look back and see this was a time of discovery, like you said.
Yep.
And we're going to look back and say, well, did I, just like, was I frozen in fear, or did I take advantage of it? So I recommend we all look into how we can take advantage of it. So, Tom, if people want to learn more about the tool, about you, where should they go?
tomsplanner.com. And if they have any questions or suggestions, or if they try to put their whole project proposal into the little text field and had it generate a chart and it worked well, let me know as well. You can reach me at tom@tomsplanner.com. I'm always eager to hear from users and project managers in the field.
Yeah, so I'll have links to Tom's Planner on the show notes for today's episode, and I recommend everybody to go. I think you can create an account for free there, Tom, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
And so it has a limited set of functionalities, which means that you can just play around with it and build your chart, but as soon as you want to share it with others or print or, like export it to a PDF, so as soon as your chart starts to have value, then we try to get you to pay us a little bit.
Sounds good. Yeah. All right. So, so go to pmforthemasses.com, look for today's episode there, and you'll find links to Tom's Planner, links to the book that I mentioned, and you'll be able to link straight from there to to the planner, to the tool, and use it. And then if you are amazed and if you want to share your findings, let Tom know. You can also leave a comment on the show notes for today's episode. Tom, thank you so much for taking time today out of your beautiful Curacao to come and share your knowledge with us. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks, Cesar. Thank you.
And thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you next time. And until then, remember, life is a project and you are the manager. Ciao, ciao.